Welcome back to Two in a Pew, conversations on faith and creativity. I'm excited about this next guest. She started her career as a solo artist with Warner Brothers Records. She went on to be part of the all-female country group Farewell Angelina, where she was a songwriter, artist, as well as touring internationally with them. She shows off her fun and silly side on a really fun podcast she does called The Happiest Hour. She also shares all of her experience and wisdom from the music industry with students at Belmont University in the songwriting department. She is a teacher of the songwriting department, which is incredible. She's also a mom and a wife, and thankfully for me, she's a really sweet friend, and I'm so excited to welcome her. Welcome, Lauren Lucas.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this. You have a lot on your plate. You do a lot in the creative field, starting out as an artist, songwriter, really collaborator in a lot of ways, and now teacher. So that's quite the journey. I would love to start at the beginning with you. I think I probably told you this when I very first met you in person, but years before that, I had heard you because you had this song out, If I Was Your Girl.
Oh, yeah.
And it was on one of my I was obsessed because of wanting to go into music and wanting to be a songwriter and everything before I got out here. And I had a little list of songs that I loved that were female singer-songwriters. And there were people like Rachel Proctor at the time, was obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And Cindy Thompson and just... And that song of yours, I remember hearing it the first time thinking, oh my God, that voice is so warm and rich. And I just thought that song was so much fun. So before I met you, I had heard you. And
I don't think you told me.
Really?
I don't remember this story. That's
really?
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well,
my voice is not warm and rich today. It is. I sound like a smoker who just smoked a pack of Camels or something. But
it makes you sound very cool.
Well, getting over I don't know, sinus or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's really part of being in Middle Tennessee is
oh my gosh.
Constant
allergies
things in the air. Yeah, for sure.
But thank you. That makes me feel so good. I had no idea.
Oh yeah. I thought I had told you that, but I guess not. But it is, I just love that song. It still holds up today, but anyway, so fast forward, I already was familiar with music, and then meeting you in regular life, Nashville regular life, it's so much fun to just see your career, how it's just continued to grow in so many different ways. Like I mentioned on your list of things you've done, you've been a solo artist, you've also been a collaborative artist in a band, and you're sharing your wisdom and teaching. So let's start from the very beginning, though, with that first record deal and how you made that transition from solo artist to being part of Farewell Angelina in the band.
Yeah. So I did my undergrad at Belmont University. So that's my alma mater. And an adjunct professor introduced me to a producer in town the summer before my senior year. And that producer and I started working together. His name's Biff Watson. And he started putting me with co-writers. And I had already been writing for a while. I'd had a publishing deal at Sony and some other development deals leading up to my Belmont experience. But at that time, Biff had kind of started widening my co-writing circle and ultimately helped get my deal at Warner Brothers. And so I graduated from Belmont in the School of Music, from the School of Music, and then made a record for Warner. And that was a fantastic experience. I made a full-length record, which was kind of still the trend at the time. This was before Spotify. Napster was on the scene, so people, were stealing music outright at the time.
Feeling great about it.
Yep. So, I mean, we were kind of fighting that battle, but as far as monetizing music. But people were still making full-length records all the time. And I went on a radio tour. I was label mates with Blake Shelton and Big and Rich and Faith Hill and got to play some amazing shows with some of them and got to go to the ACM Awards and, just some really peak experiences as a musician. And they put out 2 singles, and then the head of the label who signed me went just decided to go into the A&R side. And so they brought someone else from LA to come in and run the label. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, this is the case with so many artists. There are so many signed artists on rosters that you will never hear about.
Right.
So what happened was the person who signed me and was fully invested in me was no longer the top dog. The new guy comes in and he doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know the music. He's not invested. The record's already in the can. So like, there's no way for him to put his thumbprint on anything.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own agenda, his own people he wants to sign and work with.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got shelved for a long time. And the whole A&R staff ended up turning over for the most part. Most of the A&R staff left and he brought new folks in there. So then I was meeting new people and trying to form new relationships, and almost like it felt like re-auditioning as a signed artist again for my own record label, which is again, very common. So, so long story short, we went in and recorded a few more songs trying to get people back on board, but it just never really happened. And so I eventually left the label and ended up signing 2 more publishing deals, separate publishing deals with different companies over the next 7-8 years probably. So I started really focusing on writing for other artists. I released 2 independent EPs on my own, which is where If I Was Your Girl was the first independent EP that I recorded and released myself. And that did get some critical acclaim. And that was a great experience. And then I followed that up with an EP called On With the Show. So I just kind of wanted to show people like, hey, now so I was a major label artist. Now I'm completely indie, grassroots, but I'm not going anywhere. This is what I do. I'm a musician. Right. A record deal does not validate whether I'm a musician or not, Yeah. So I'm going to do what I do. And then I started writing for other artist projects and getting some cuts from other artists. Weirdly got kind of lucked into some TV and film placements, which was really fun. And that's been a kind of a re-emerging part of my career as of late. And so focused on that. And then after that ultimately third publishing deal ended, I was with them for 2 years. I was just tired. I first started coming to town when I was 11 years old. LeAnn Rimes, well, that it even predates LeAnn Rimes, but suffice it to say, I used to play festivals and pageants and anywhere that I could play. When I was growing up in South Carolina, I'd play. And so, people would introduce my parents to different folks and, the leapfrog game. And that ended us up here in Nashville when I was in middle school. And I sang on the Grand Ole Gospel Hour of the Grand Ole Opry. Oh, cool. And then by the time I was 14, LeAnn Rimes had hit big. And so everyone in town was looking for a teenager for their roster. And I fit the bill. I was 14 at the time. And that's when I got signed to Sony Publishing. And so, why did I backtrack on that? There was a point. In saying just that I had been pitching and repitching and since I was 14 years old. Yeah. And now after that third publishing deal, I was about 28, 29. And I'm like, I just don't know that I have the energy to like gather up a whole new catalog of songs that isn't owned by a publisher.
That's not already pocketed somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah. And go through the dog and pony show again of, taking the meetings, hearing the no's, writing with more folks for let me hear more. Oh yeah, bring me some more, which is like the nicest no you'll ever hear.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to say it.
Yeah, but sure. That process takes a year or two usually before you kind of land that next deal, or at least it has in my experience. And so I just didn't know if I had another, 3-year pitching process in me again at that point. And so I also had just gone through a divorce at that time from my first husband, and I was trying to figure out a way to make ends meet, and as now just a single person income, and so I just kind of took a break, and I was going through a huge personal transformation because of going through a divorce and deciding to take a step back from music just to kind of regroup for a second. And so that was a huge shift in my life. And And then, so I took a hiatus for about 3 years, and I went into a corporate job teaching leadership training at Dale Carnegie, which was a fantastic experience. And I learned so many amazing skills and wonderful people, skills that I still use today in now my own little music business. And then after that 3-year period, or what ended that 3-year period for me was Farewell Angelina, the all-female band. 2 of those women had been friends of mine for 15 years or more, just in the music business. Because you know how it is. Like, it's like we all know each other. We all have co-written together or played shows together at some point. And so actually one of those women introduced me to my first husband. That's how far back I went with her.
Right, yeah.
So, anyway.
Deep.
Yeah. So they called, and they had a band member who had left the band recently. So they were looking for a replacement for that band member. And I had just gotten remarried to Dan, my husband. And I looked at Dan and I was like, this is the stupidest thing I could possibly do with my life.
Right.
And I really want to do it.
Yeah.
And he's the most supportive ever. And so I joined Farewell Angelina.
That's amazing.
And so did that for, I guess, just shy of maybe 2.5-ish years, maybe just shy of 3 years, and had some wonderful experiences. We toured internationally. We toured all over this country. We were gone a ton. We were mostly a touring band is really kind of, that was our main thing. And wrote new music with them and toured all over the place with them and had a wonderful experience. Still friends with those women today and collaborators with several of them. And so then I decided we were just gone so much. I was nearing kind of the end of my biological, time period of if I was going to have a family, it was kind of a now or never. Sure. And I was really unsure about that most of my life. I just never felt this huge tug. But as that started kind of creeping in and the older and older I got, I was like, I don't know if I want that to slip by. So I decided I did want to try for a family. And so I got off the road. I left Farewell Angelina. And then again, just kind of had this real incubator period. I don't even know what to call it. I released a Christmas EP during that time, another solo project. I released 2 or 3 singles outside of that Christmas EP just to kind of keep producing some music and things that I had loved in my back catalog that I finally, recorded and put out in the world. And then I got pregnant and had my child on March 24th of 2020.
Which is my birthday, by the way. And I always love
that. I know. Now I remember that. Yeah. Yes, I forgot. And now I remember. That's right.
I'm a little older than him.
Yeah.
But,
well, March 24th of 2020, if we all remember, was like a week or so into lockdowns.
Yes.
And he was preemie. And so we spent about 3 weeks in the NICU, and that was a scary time. But at any rate, we got through all that. And then I had this little preemie baby at home who, was about 6 weeks behind his normal developmental schedule. So he was sleeping constantly and there was nowhere to go because COVID times. Right. And so I started, excuse me, I started really digging into my home studio. I had kind of played around here and there, not with a huge amount of success, of feeling really confident with it. And so I took an online course. I learned Logic well enough to actually, produce some tracks. And so that kind of reignited a spark in me. And so I kind of reignited my solo career and started producing more music. I've been putting out singles pretty regularly this past year. And then I also got the call to submit an application for the role at Belmont, which is an instructor of songwriting for the songwriting department at Curb College. And so I guess this is my 3rd semester now teaching songwriting. And so now what I do for the most part is I'm writing for other artists and their projects. I'm writing for some TV film projects. I'm releasing and recording my own music as a solo artist again. And I'm teaching songwriting. I mostly reserve touring for the summer because I still love playing live shows. But right now with having a child and then my Belmont semester kind of schedule, summer's kind of my touring time.
Right.
And then I do, some corporate gigs throughout the year as well. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the nutshell was kind of a long nutshell,
but that's I love it.
Kind of, the thing.
It's so interesting because I think a lot of times people will really focus on when they're laying out a career path for music, especially, but for different areas of entertainment, there's advice given about focusing on pick one lane and go. Focus. Never stop. Kind of pound the ground. Just push. But the nature of creativity is not push, pull along, hyper focus on one thing only. The nature of creativity, at least the way that God breathes it through us, is very ebb and flow. It's very rest and recharge, then share and express. It is such a much more soft and flexible thing creativity is, in my opinion and my experience. And your story is very much, you allowed yourself, some by your own choice, some by your experience and what was going on around you, but those times of pause and reset, you allowed that for yourself without letting it take you away from your craft and away from your gifting. And I think that's such an important thing to share out loud and not to hide because of that counter message, I think that is out there a lot of like, if you're not working 10 times harder than everyone else around you, if you ever even think about taking a 10-minute break, it's over for you. And that's just not the way. It's not the way. If you're open to the way that creativity is going to be part of your life, if you want it to be your life full time, forever, you have to let it be flexible a bit, which is very, very, very cool. And,
Yeah, I will say that I think, I used to buy into that. Like this was definitely the thing before online streaming became a big thing. Mm-hmm. The thing that like pro writers would tell you or pro artists would tell you at workshops. And if you went, to NSAI or something like that, it would be like, if you could think about doing anything else in your life, then you better do it because exactly. Like you've got to focus and only do this and eat, sleep and breathe it. And you definitely do kind of have to immerse yourself, I think, in a lot of ways. But I think that message, I now believe, is just fear-mongering.
Right.
And oh my gosh, the way we monetize our industry now, most people who are getting cuts have a second job these days. Right. So, that kind of went out the window. But I will also say, in hearing what you just said about the ebb and flow and the nature of creativity, I will say that in those moments of incubation or hiatus, I did feel like I was taking myself away from my craft or creativity. There were definitely moments of like, it definitely felt wildernessy to me, well, maybe this isn't, like, maybe that's run its course. Maybe I've done that and now I'm supposed to be doing something else, It felt very uncertain and it did not feel like, oh, I'm just going to rest for a minute, It felt very uncertain to me, but something always kept calling me back. And I've learned now that I need to honor that because if I don't, resentment and a bunch of other ugly things are going to rise,
Yeah. If the calling's on your heart, you have to chase it. Whether, and you mentioned this earlier, whether you're supported by a label or not, and whether, it makes sense on paper or not, if that calling is strong enough, following it. I mean, intentional incorporation of rest and recharge is maybe more of the answer of anticipating that you need time to spend with family, you need time to watch movies and get ideas and feel something in your heart a little bit, building community, giving yourself enough time in your schedule to live enough life to put back in. That can be recharging. Folding in rest and recharge as on purpose is more of a long-term creative game plan, probably.
Yes, and one that I struggle with. And in fact, it's so timely that you said that in my life because I always like to choose a word for the year. And I think I already know what my word's going to be for next year, even though I'm a little early. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I don't know what it's going to be until like the new year already hits. But I've already kind of decided. I think my word for the year is going to be margin. I need to build in margin. I need, just wearing all the hats of being a wife, being a mom, being a teacher, being ultimately a small business owner in what I do with my music career. Doesn't leave a lot of margin, but I have to start building that in.
Mm-hmm. That's a great word. I know that you do that, and I love that practice, picking a word at the beginning of the year. Do you find that you're able to hold to that throughout the year? Do you intentionally write it on things? How do you keep that incorporated for 12 full months?
So I do write it on a little postcard or note card, I guess, that I tape to my bathroom mirror, so I see it every morning. And I don't use the word as like a bar to reach. Like it's not a performative thing. I try to really resist, because it's kind of easy to be like, oh, I'm not doing it today, or I try not to use it as another rule or strict discipline thing. It's more like just a soft guide for the year, and just like, a barometer, I guess, like this year, vibrant.
Vibrant. Oh,
vibrant.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I see it every morning, and I was like, I see the thing, but anyway. And to me, vibrant meant like not just health vibrant. I think a lot of times people say vibrant and they think like health, and that is definitely a part of it. But it also meant like, what relationships do I need to like pull back from and push the gas on? And like, it was like the whole ball of wax. What is all the decisions in my life, spiritually, career-wise, family-wise, friendship-wise, health-wise, movement-wise, all of it. Like if I really took inventory of my entire life, what things need to stay and kind of push the gas on, and what things need to go to make me feel vibrant. And I have for sure missed the mark on feeling vibrant every day or even for long stretches of time. And goodness gracious, this year has been a tough one for so many reasons. And, but it just kind of serves as like a little barometer, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. A little guiding. And I love that you're saying, not forcing that too, which that is something I've experienced with living a creative life, is to give yourself, it's hard when you are able to make creativity into a business and actually have the opportunity to make a living doing something creative. That energy of force starts to creep in just a little bit, because you've got timelines and you've got expectations and you've got this and that going. But again, creativity has a softness to it. And so allowing something like that be more of a guidepost instead of being like, I have to be vibrant every day or else.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. I love that. You mentioned this year, and I'd love to just touch on this for a little moment, because you've had the experience of being on a bigger platform as an artist, indie platform as an artist, and again, as I mentioned earlier, I heard your voice before I knew you as a person, and your voice is really unique and beautiful, and you've used it. Big platform, indie platform. You've also used it on a more intimate platform. And so I'd love to talk about your experience a little bit with that, because I know when you're an artist, songwriter, you have an experience where you touch other people's lives, and people might, can share that with you, but it's a little bit out there. Like, oh, I know this song helped so-and-so, or a faceless, nameless person, but that it's resonating with people based on different metrics. When you're using your gifting in a healing way and sharing your voice or your songwriting in an intimate way off of a big platform, you see the results of it immediately, and it's very close. It's very vulnerable and intimate. This year, I've watched you do that a couple times. Thank you again so much for doing it. But you sang at my husband's funeral, which was so special, and I so appreciate it. But you also shared your incredible voice for another service around covenant, the covenant time. There was multiple things around that you were able to share your gifting in. I would just love to touch on your experience using it that way, because you've had both experiences where you're reaching people kind of at arm's length and then reaching people literally in your face. How has God called you in both ways? Where have you experienced him in both ways that you've been directed with your gifting?
I'm so glad you asked this, because it has truly, this year has been some of the most meaningful, can't call them gigs. What do you call them? I don't know what to call them, but invitations to sing, and I guess, of my life, like for Billy's service, for Evelyn's service, and for her burial. I mean, and I have felt so, I think it has been such a gift for me. I mean, I was kind of caught off guard by how impactful sharing so intimately in someone's grief feels. And I also learned about myself that it doesn't feel, I am not scared by that feeling. Like it was hard. It still is hard. But it was such an honor to be there for the Dick House family, for you and your family, and Billy, who I knew and has the great pleasure of knowing. It is just such an honor to honestly to share in those moments of your lives and in your deep grief. And I don't know exactly how to explain it, other than you do get at least a little bit more of a sense or a hope of like, oh, I'm doing this thing this is the thing I can do. You know, like I can't, there are no words, I don't know, there's just nothing else I can offer really, I don't feel like, but this I can offer. And it is at least an immediate part of a balm, hopefully, that can bring some healing or some peace or memories or whatever that thing is. And so that has been so meaningful to me in my life this year. And some of the most important work that I've done. And then also, I will say that it took me an embarrassingly long time to really understand as an artist on a bigger platform, if you even want to call it that, or just even social media, since that's the way we kind of reach people these days now. I'm lucky enough to have a core group of fans from my Warner Brothers days who have followed me all the way, and then picked up a whole new core group with Farewell Angelina. And so I have this really engaged, robust, beautiful community of fans who continue to follow my music that I'm so grateful for. And it took me a while to understand, like I was so focused on metrics and opportunities, and like I wanted to do this thing the way I saw other people doing the thing, you know? It took me a long time to realize, like, oh, no, it's because of these people that I even get to do this. It's not because of an artist manager that wants to sign me, or a booking agent, or a label. Like, that's awesome. And like, that'll help people reach even more people, which is great and helpful. But I don't even have to worry about all that. All I need to worry about are these people who are supporting my music and are saying they like my music and want to hear more from me. Like, oh, this is my tribe. And so it took me, like, again, kind of an embarrassingly long time to figure out, like, oh, I have a tribe. Oh, I do have a tribe. And like, that's who I really need to be focusing on. And once I really started to understand that, making music and sharing music and doing all the crazy and sometimes cringy things that you kind of do to try to get your music out there.
Yeah. We've all done it.
Yeah. It just, it just makes it more worthwhile. It makes it more meaningful. There's a true connection. There's a true community building that happens. I got more engaged with my music fans because I really started to understand this true give and take, this real conversation that we were having with each other.
Yes.
Because I will also say, like, the emails and the DMs of like, this song touched my life, or I have several fans who lost family members during COVID or lost jobs or handling addiction and those kinds of things. There are certain songs of mine that they will tell me through DM or email that have helped them through and mean a lot to them. And that is, that's a reminder of why I do what I do. But those messages in the grand total of things don't come in daily. They're not coming in all the time. And so I've really learned that my job is to love what I'm doing, to believe in it, to follow my instinct, and to put my co-creation out there, because everything we do is co-created, in my opinion, with God. And that's my job, is to put it out there and to trust that if I love it, my tribe will love it, and other people out there will love it.
Yes.
And then it's kind of none of my business. Yeah. Like, once it's out there, it is no longer mine. It is ours somehow. Yeah. And whatever that means for the other half of that relationship is kind of like none of my business.
Up to them. Yeah.
I don't know.
I love that. That actually, my late husband Billy used to always say, other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
Yeah.
And I've always loved that quote. That doesn't come naturally to me, honestly. So
no, me neither.
I've always loved that, because I'm like, oh, that's a challenge for me. I love that. But similarly, I've felt that experience in creativity is once you release something, if you're trying to hold on to it and control it after it's out of your hands, you're not really you're not letting people in on what you're doing. You're doing it really just for yourself. Yeah. You have to let that go a little bit. You have to open your hands. And so much beauty comes from that, and seeing, here's this little spark, then it turns into this and turns into this. Then you put it in someone else's hands and it can turn into anything, because it's part of their experience. And that's such a beautiful process. You have done an amazing job at focusing in on your tribe, as you were just calling it. How would you advise or speak into identifying that group? And because I feel like that can translate whether you're an artist or even in your job, like in another vocation or field. So much of what we do in life, if we're thinking too broad, we almost miss the mark a bit. When you're identifying who you're doing it for and why you're doing it, there's so much power in that. So how would you kind of guide or speak into identifying that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that comes to mind is when I did take one of my hiatuses and worked at Dale Carnegie, part of my job was to coach leadership programs. And then part of my job was to sell the leadership programs that then I could coach. And in the selling process and learning that, one of the biggest lessons I learned was to qualify your leads, meaning qualify, like, are they in the main demographic of who needs what you're selling ultimately? And if they're not, then don't pay attention to them. Don't put your energy there. And if it's a no, it might just be a no right now, but like, that's fine. Like, just let it be. Don't chase a no. Like, qualify your leads and identify who really wants what you have. And I think that's it can be true. I think that's true, like, just in life, like even friendships and partners. And it's like, who do you share values with? Who seems to be gravitating towards what you want? I'm not going to be I'm not making music for 18-year-olds.
Right.
I'm not making music for 25-year-olds even, really. I mean, like, if they happen to like my music, that's great. But some of the things that I'm singing about now and writing now, my experience as a mom, which, I mean, I'm an older first-time mom, so, there are certainly 20-year-olds who can relate to motherhood.
Yeah.
But there's just a wiser womanhood about living into now my 40s that I'm just interested in, like, putting my truth out there. And I don't expect my truth to resonate with Olivia Rodrigo fans necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I just don't think that's my demographic.
Yeah.
And
that being okay.
And that's totally okay. Like,
Right.
because if I were to chase that, it's not going to work anyway. Like it, you know? So I just, so I guess, I'm horrible about giving advice because ultimately I just don't know. But I guess, like, first of all, believe in what you're doing and understand that again, it's none of your business who likes it and who doesn't like it. And so when people like it and, you know, whether it's through social media comments or DMs or live shows, like, gather those people up as much as you can. I use a newsletter, and I try to send out an email at least once a month, just saying hi, like giving them some free music or giving a little story behind the song, or just giving something personal that I can give. Again, to kind of just build community. And like, this is presumably why you're here, is because you want to hear more and you like what you're hearing, and I like interacting with you. And so it's this beautiful give and take. So I think, like, once you find the people who have identified themselves as wanting what you're creating, then just find ways to love on them a little bit. You know, I think, I don't know. That's what I would say.
That's amazing. And that really does aid in that idea of longevity. We were talking before we started filming that when we've both had this experience, when you've been in Nashville for long enough, and it's probably LA or New York, wherever, you see people rise, fall, rise, fall, rise, fall again. There you see people decide to move on to different paths, maybe move away. There's all different kinds of ways to really be actively engaged in the music industry, and then also to disengage. But if you have a goal of doing it forever, feels very long, but with longevity, part of that is identifying just what you're saying, identifying who you're doing it for, and not trying to reach people that aren't necessarily going to find it purposeful, but to give a lot more towards people that do find it purposeful. And then diversifying a little bit, which you've done. You have such a great community online, which I think is awesome. You do a lot of live, like Instagram live little gatherings for your community. I was doing them more regularly. And I will say that is one piece that has dropped off for me as I've taken on this instructor role at Belmont. It's just, something's kind of got to give. And so I will say, like, I was doing those, and I do them from time to time, but I was trying to do them at a pretty consistent clip. And that's kind of fallen away. And so during kind of this holiday break coming up, I'm going to kind of just put some thought into restructuring, like, how I want to participate in those and that kind of thing. But yes, I was doing, yes, for sure. Yeah. And you have lots of different points of connect. That's just one of many ways that you connect with people, and within your very busy schedule, I realize. But yeah, finding your niche, connecting with them, and focusing, which in your story so far, you have had moments where it has looked different for you. But that seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here or elaborate, but the common thread there is staying true to your core, which is so important if you have that longevity kind of in mind of wanting to be creative be in a creative field forever. That seems so important, like such an important piece is staying true to, like you mentioned earlier. Well, I put out those next 2 EPs or albums because I'm not just doing this because I had a label deal. I'm doing this because I'm a songwriter and I have something to say. And that's that core value is holding on to what you're doing and why you're doing it. Would you say? Yeah,
I had, I remember, like, even back then I had to have someone kind of remind me of that and really encourage me to keep going, which I think is also important, to surround yourself with a support system, because I mean, life is hard and the music business is even harder. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I've been, I think it has taken me a while to really even figure out my core desires. I think that started to happen again in that big transition period, but in my late 20s to early 30s, of what do I really value and what is really important to me. And I think for a long time, I was chasing the accolades, the fame, the critical acclaim. There was just definitely this drive in me that wanted to be seen and noticed. And I still have that desire to be recognized for what I do and to hopefully be respected for it. But the work in and of itself has become more important. And, you can't control all that other stuff anyway, but I can control what I want to co-create and how I want to put it out into the world and what I want to say. And so I think it's taken me a while, honestly, to find what my core is. But I do, now that I know a little bit more about myself, I do try to stay as true to that as I know how. But it is still hard to not play the comparison game sometimes, and still have goals and want more, and then try to figure out, well, how do I meet those goals and keep myself, know?
Staying true to that.
Yeah.
You keep mentioning co-creating with God, which I really love. I love that. And I really believe that too. Anything that you do in a creative way, or really the way that we walk in life, if you have a relationship with God, is a continual co-creation as you go along, staying in touch with God. Your faith developed a little bit later in your life. How did you get struck with the spark of a relationship with God, and what led you a little bit deeper into your faith journey?
Yeah. So thankfully, I had a family have a family who instilled in me from a very early age a belief in God, a higher power, and prayer, and the 10 Commandments. That was kind of the foundation of my spirituality, if you will. And then, I grew up in South Carolina. I had a friend in elementary school whose dad was a pastor, and then just a lot of people around me in a very kind of Southern Christian environment. The flavor of Christianity with a lot of my friends was very like brimstone-y, and very fear-based. And I just didn't understand it. Like, I don't know. It didn't jive for me. And I tried and I tried and I tried and I tried to understand and to believe, and I just could not make that work. Which then ultimately I think kind of turned me away from the whole idea of organized religion for a while. And then really it was going through a divorce and I think just getting a little older and wiser and realizing once my life was kind of turned upside down in that way, it was really, I call it a Renaissance period for me. It was just a reawakening that I just can't quite explain, and I just really started seeking a lot of things. Again, what are my values and what do I want the rest of my life to look like? And what, I don't know. I was now I didn't have to consider another person in my life for the first time in a really long time. What is it that I want? Just me. And that's kind of scary, to be oh, I get to make all these decisions. Okay. And so and honestly, I started going to therapy, which I'm that has just been a huge piece of my life. And I still am, I go monthly still just for tune-ups, I love it. And it has been such a valuable part of my life. And really, I think it was through my therapy experience where I really started to understand I think something else is, I guess I just started to understand my inherent value.
Yeah.
I think I had lost sight of that.
Wow,
and I think through that, I started to understand my inherent value. And that just kind of started leading me on this seeking path. And so I read a lot of books. I read, and I'm a fan of some new age things. I'm a fan of mysticism. I'm a fan of a lot of different flavors, if you will.
Sure.
But I think they're saying mostly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just I don't know. I think whether you have a relationship with God or not, you're co-creating.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to know about it or believe it for it to actually be happening.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the way we interact with people, I think just the energy we bring to a situation, I think, starting a family is co-creating, any kind of art. I mean, finding a solution for anything. I mean, I think pretty much we're always doing it, whether we realize it or not. The words we speak out into the universe, the thoughts we have. I mean, we are co-creating our experience here, and we're all very interconnected. And so whatever I'm creating this very minute, co-creating is tugging on the rest of the world somehow is what I think.
Yeah. We're so fully connected that it's impossible to separate yourself out of the bigger picture, because we're just part of the net. And it's if you can be aware of that. And that's always what's drawn me deeper in my faith, is the awareness, the importance of awareness of a greater good and higher power, and the way that God uses us for each other, and to be the miracles and to be the hands and feet on earth while we're still here. It's not something that you just think about, pray for, and hope for later on in the afterlife. It's really like right now, we are the miracles, and we are the connection for each other with God. It's and creativity is that. It's just a constant. It's a constant motion and webbing.
Yes,
which is so cool. And you see that as you know, in the writing room, you sit down in there, and it's like you've got nothing. Whether you're writing by yourself or whether you're with some co-writers, you start with nothing, an idea, maybe a little lick here and there, whatever, and then all of a sudden you leave with something that's really powerful. Or fun, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it's supposed to be that day.
Yep.
You are now, you're not selfish with your experience and with your wisdom and talents. You are now sharing that as a songwriting teacher. How have you seen a change in, now with these students that you're mentoring and teaching, the way that, full circle, since you were at Belmont, which is really cool, the way that the business is done now for these newer artists, at the time you were getting a development deal and writing, and there was a lot of kind of mentorship and shaping, the way that they did it at the time. How are you seeing the changes with the people that you're mentoring now in this program versus when you were in it?
So I was in the School of Music, and the songwriting department didn't even exist yet. So now I'm teaching in the School of Music Business in the songwriting department. And I think in some ways that's a difference, because I see some of my students have naturally found themselves immersed into a community with their peers and with other songwriting students and other musicians. And they're like, what I keep telling my students is like, you need your social life and your music life need to do this in college eventually. Like what, not to go back to like, you've got to eat, sleep, and breathe it, but also like try to eat, sleep, and breathe it,
it's
like
community. It's life.
That's right.
Life with music.
So if you want to go out and see a show with some friends and be supportive of whoever's on stage and meet somebody there. Your network is going to grow exponentially if you just get in the mix, is what I keep telling them, get in the mix. But I'm finding that I think as a School of Music student back in the day, I mean, I was friends with so many musicians. We started a band and we'd jam at people's houses, and then we'd go support each other's gigs. And I mean, I don't know, it was just so easy. It wasn't strategic. It just happened.
Yeah.
And I find with a lot of music business students, at least the ones that I teach, some of them are naturally finding that way. And then a lot of them aren't, though. There's still like this compartmentalizing of like, oh, here's my music life. And then here's my life.
Interesting, yeah.
And so I think like integrating those as much as possible is pretty important. I mean, obviously keep the authentic friends you have, regardless of what they do.
Don't
but
pick out your friends because they're in accounting department. But
but but try to start integrating that your life. But also, oh my goodness, like now it is such a singles driven economy. There's no barrier to entry. I mean, any old person can record a song and they do.
Yeah.
And
they do.
Put it up on Spotify. They put it out on TikTok. And then every now and again, something goes viral. And it's just a totally different world than what was here in the music business when I had my deal at Warner, you know? I mean, it is 100% different.
Right.
One thing that isn't different, from what I can tell at least, is you still can't really beat the reach and the power that the machine has, like a label, to if you want to do terrestrial radio.
Sure.
And as a songwriter, that's really where you're going to see a payday. And even for like editorial playlists, I mean, the labels really have their finger on the pulse on getting their artist on those, you know? So, I mean, there is definitely a muscle that a label still has for those things, but you don't need a label as much as you used to. So that's a big difference too, you know? And so really trying to, I think publishers are starting to get into the game of helping artists develop through writing, which is great because it's helping them tell their story.
Sure.
And they're kind of getting into the production business as well. A lot of times there's like a production company and a publisher, they'll have different arms. There's just so many different ways to do it now. And I feel like, you can, I think if you really love the work you do and you do it for the work, then you can have a sustainable career. There's just a lot of different facets. You got to wear all the hats, in order to kind of make that work. And so, but it's possible. And so there are a lot of different avenues, and just helping them sometimes come up with if they've never released music and they want to release music, also helping them sometimes with a little strategy of like, okay, you got to really plan ahead and like go ahead and pick out your singles and kind of figure out, sometimes people don't understand. You got to pitch to a playlist, you got to have it all ready 4 weeks before, you want to launch it.
Yeah.
And, just different little things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. As now using your experience so far in teaching, you're also, just from knowing you, you're also kind of a continual student too. As you mentioned earlier, during COVID times, you took that time not to just sleep while your baby was sleeping, but you were like, I'm going to take a course. I'm going to figure out how I can be home. And since I can't be out at a studio or collaborating here or there, how to do it on my own. You're always just figuring it out. And that's that diversifying, the openness to being diverse in the way that you're putting your career together, that is really powerful. And sounds like you're already passing it along to your students too, that just like you said, it's possible. It is possible to put together a career for yourself if you are willing and open to what that might look like for you personally. It can look a lot of different ways now. And if we're constantly looking out at like, well, that person's doing it this way and it's working really well, I should also do that. Maybe you should. Maybe that is also your way, but maybe it's not. Maybe a little bit of this and a little bit of that with a little bit of this is your way. And only you can do it your own way. But if we restrict ourselves, that's when we hold ourselves back and build all kinds of emotional resistance to, in my belief, success and creativity. So being willing to try different things, give yourself a chance to do it different ways. You seem to have been able to do that from my perspective,
and
the way you've put together your life and your career right now.
I do love learning, I will say. And I have really taken a shine to learning more about marketing, like online marketing, and yes, production on the back end, and even like some of the creative things that you do as well of some of the graphic design stuff. And I mean, there is kind of a double-edged sword of like, you can be a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Right.
So I definitely do think that, and I think I run into that a lot for myself. Like Elizabeth Gilbert has this great, I guess maybe it's on YouTube or something. I can't remember, but the author Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes. Big Magic.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that book.
Such a wonderful book.
Yes.
I can't remember where you find it now, but she says this thing about like some people are jackhammers and some people are butterflies. Have you, or hummingbirds? Have you heard this?
Yes. I'm blanking on exactly what it was, but yes, it sounds familiar.
Yeah. And I think what she's saying is some of us are wired like jackhammers, where it is that like, it's very natural for some people to go focus, hustle,
Right.
and get it done. And don't look up until it's done. And some of us are naturally wired that way. And then some of us are wired like hummingbirds, where we flit around and pollinate different, areas, and both are needed in the world. And so I definitely would fall under the hummingbird category, but that is what is natural to me.
Yeah.
And so, I experiment a lot. I am not, I do not like anything related to extreme sports. I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, so I'm pretty, kind of fear-based in a lot of ways. But I will say I feel like very adventurous when it comes to just learning stuff and then trying it, and, I don't know. That like makes me tick for some reason.
That's such a common thread though, with creative-minded people. And, the joy of getting to do this podcast, the reason why I wanted to, is because I get to be around people like you and these different guests I'm bringing in that there's so much to be said for the creative mind in every avenue of our lifestyle, because there is this little strain of bravery that it takes, and openness to be like, well, I'm going to see if there's another way to do this, or I'm going to see if maybe this has been working really well, but it's not working, instead of being like, oh, dang, it's not working.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, why is it not working? What if I did it this other way, or took this other direction? Another guest that we just had mentioned it even in sitting in traffic. You're like, oh man, this is, instead of sitting there hitting the wheel and cursing the traffic, remembering like, oh, I remember I took that one alternate route, and not being afraid to be like, well, maybe that's backed up, but maybe it's not. I'm going to give it a try and go around a different direction. That's that creative mindset of how can we figure things out? How can we find solutions out of openness? And it's such a common strain that is fascinating to me, and I love it. And I feel that you don't have to be a naturally brave person all the time to have brave thoughts, and
I love
to
that.
take little steps out. And that's so much of creativity. And you've done that. I kind of want to finish up here with touching on, as we mentioned, you've done it a lot of different ways, and you've been a solo artist, you've been in a band, and an additional, you just did another collaboration recently with the Lo-Fi Dollies project that you did. That was so fun. But you've been solo, you've been collaborative in a band, you've been major label, you've been indie artist, you've been before being an online community was that important to now when it's like the most important. How have you brought yourself to all those different ways of expression, and how have you found them to be different from each other? Do you have one that you prefer over the other, collaborative versus kind of your own adventure? How do you see yourself in that, and what have you brought to that?
I like it all. I mean, I really do. I like it all. I really enjoy collaborating a lot. And as I've gotten older, it's surprised. I think after coming out of my Warner deal, it surprised me. Like I'd get hired to sing on a demo, or I'd get hired to sing background vocals for somebody, or I don't know, just some way of singing that was more in a collaborative way. And like, I love my whole Dale Carnegie experience. I love being a teammate and a team member. And yes, being able to bring my individuality and my strengths, and then learning where my faults were, and then improving on some of those to a certain extent if I could. but I don't know. I love a collaborative experience. I think it can feel very isolating to me to just be doing it all on my own. And I also think like, I don't know if it's a natural innate thing or if I've learned, but I think diplomacy is a talent of mine and to some degree. So I don't know. I like that a lot. But I also, my goodness, I learned so much with those three ladies in Farewell Angelina, my three friends, that I've then been able to take from that experience and pour into my solo career again.
Right.
So it's really hard to say. Like, I think that I bring to a team effort, I think I bring kind of process. I think I'm very like left and right brained. And so I think I brought some process. I think I brought, a little bit of focus in some areas. And certainly that kind of, if you want to call it bravery or whatever it is, of just like, well, let's figure it out, and definitely I take a lot of initiative. Like I'm always like, well, let's just roll up our sleeves and like figure it out. So I think I brought that to the table, but then also learned a lot about other people's processes and the need for rest and the need of just like not controlling it all. And like, well, let's just also kind of see what happens, and so I don't know. I love all of it, and I think that's what I really like about being in the moment I'm in. I had to kind of prove to my students that you really can have a career, however you want it to look. And at any age, like no one's running out of time. Like we're good. Everybody's good.
Yeah.
Chill out,
Just chill. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, none of this fear mongering stuff. It really is it can all work out. And, I just got the chance this past spring to work with an absolute hero of mine, singing a big marketing campaign for the Canadian National Railroad Company with Keb Mo, who is like one of my, I sang a Keb Mo song for my senior recital at Belmont.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
wow.
I have loved Keb Mo so genuinely for so long.
That's awesome.
And in that process, like, Keb Mo was brought in to beat Keb Mo, he's the multi-Grammy winning Americana artist. I was brought in to be a featured singer, singing a duet with him, but my role was more session singery, and that's what I was there for. And so I was there to take direction from the producer to tell me like, make this breathier and sing this note instead of that note or whatever it was they wanted me to do. And that was so much fun. I mean, besides working with Kevin, who is amazing as I thought he'd be, taking that direction, like getting the job done for the client. Like I love that. Yeah. And so I get to do some of that and I get to write my own songs and I get to produce them my way and release them my way. And I get to teach on a staff where a little bit of it's my way and a little bit of it's collaborative with other instructors. And I kind of am experiencing the whole ball of wax right now. Yeah. And so I really love kind of having all these different revenue streams and different ways of doing music kind of wrapped up into one career right now. Totally. So I think maybe I didn't even think of it that way, but I think I kind of have the best of both worlds right now.
Yeah, such a blend. That's so cool. Well, that really plays into living a creative life versus picking a career path, which we all do in life. It's part of our natural way. And it's so important to buckle down and focus and stay the course. But that can live next door to living a fully creative life, which requires staying open and aids in that by giving you the opportunity to diversify, try new things, which can open the door to things you never even would have maybe put in the pile of this is what this career means I will be able to do or get to do. It looks, oftentimes we look at our career path and we think, oh, that means I get to do this, this, and this, and this. How cool. I want to go do that. I get to use my gifts in this way. But if you stay a little bit open to keeping it going, those windows and doors bring opportunities that you wouldn't really have put on that plate.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you also have to I'm learning this. I'm not great at this. I'm definitely a control freak, but I'm learning to like let go of some control to let God show off. Like,
Right.
let the universe swoop in and do its universe magic too, because that is a real thing. You know, I mean, I think, I mean, even this experience with collaborating with Keb Mo, it's like, I can't even dream. I wasn't dreaming that big.
Sure.
Like, you know, that completely fell in my lap.
Right.
Because something, you know, it was right time, right person, right relationship I had for 30 years with someone who worked with him that thought of me. Like, but you could not have like ordered that up, you know? So you gotta leave some room for God to show off a little bit, I think.
That's that co-collaboration that you're talking
absolutely.
about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's such an inspiration to me. I love the idea of living a fully creative life and letting God be part of that, and letting your grip go a little bit. And it's really incredible that you're choosing to use part of your time, which is you're busy gal.
We all are.
Yeah, we all have lots on our plates, but you really are, and you're choosing to use some of your time to pour into other creatives, and I think that's really special. There's a quote that somebody said that I used to drive me crazy, where I don't know who said it originally, but people throw around, if you can't do, teach.
Oh, right.
I cannot stand that quote. And I've heard it. It feels so negative and so incorrect, because the people that I have admired most in my life that can can really do, are the best teachers, because they're generous with their gifting, and they're generous with, they don't hold it like, oh, I know how to do this for myself and I'm just going to run with it. It's like, oh, cool. I know how to do this really well. So I don't mind opening those hands, letting go a little bit and being like, here, let me show you how, or do you have any questions, or how can I come alongside you? They become mentors to people. They become teachers. And that's the best kind of teacher, is the people that really can do and are generous with that. And so I really commend you for giving a piece of your very busy schedule towards pouring into other creatives. That's so cool and so needed, I think, because we all need that support, I think, of like, hey, you can do it all kinds of ways and for however long you want to do it, or not.
Yeah, that's right.
And it can look great big, and it can look kind of medium. It can look however you want it to look, really.
Yeah.
But just keep going and letting God be part of it is so powerful. So I commend you for doing that. It's amazing. And thank you for doing this. You just put out a single. You have another Christmas song coming out. So you've got music kind of on in the flow of release right now. You also have a really fun podcast out called The Happiest Hour, and that can be found. I know there's links on your Instagram page. Where can they find all these things that you're doing right now?
Best place to find everything is laurenlucas.com.
Okay.
Yep. You can find the music. You can find my new releases, old releases, podcast, merch, story behind, whatever you want to know. It's on there. laurenlucas.com.
Getting into on your newsletter too, through laurenlucas.com.
Yeah, and in fact, I have a hidden album. And so if you sign up for the newsletter, I send you 5 tracks for free off of my hidden album. And then I do like a video story behind the song series. So you'll receive the 5 tracks and then a video of each song of me playing an acoustic and talking about how it was created.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I love that. So go check out laurenlucas.com. Find her on Instagram, which is just at Lauren Lucas.
It's Lauren Lucas Insta.
Lauren Lucas Insta on Instagram. laurenlucas.com. Go check it out. She's so amazing and fun and talented. So I promise you want to hear about all the things she's doing, all the things she's done, and all the things that she is continuing to do. You want to be part of it. So go to laurenlucas.com to check that out. Make sure to go to Two in a Pew on Instagram to see a little bit of more clips from this conversation and much more. Check us out and join us next time. Thank you so much for being here, Lauren. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me. This has been a blast. And you are co-creating something amazing with Two in a Pew.
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah. I'm so excited about it. I appreciate
and your music
you.
And all the things that you do as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Check us out for next week's episode as well. And we'll see you at Two in a Pew on Instagram.